Yes, we've got some updates. Check out these new images that show 3i Atlas in a whole new light. What's going on with this situation? What are these jets? Is it streaming out? What is all this? Is it breaking up after possibly going behind our sun? A little confusing because this all comes after last week images showed the object with no tail. Weird. So how did the object go from an anti-tail to a no tail to an anti-tail to whatever it is that we are now seeing? Let's get straight over to Harvard astronomer Professor Avi Loeb, expert on all things interstellar. Professor, great to see you. So is this a breakup of 3i Atlas? What does this all mean here?
So knowing the properties, the speed and the density of the solar wind, we can infer how much mass is being carried by these jets. And I did the calculation and I found of the order of 5 billion tons of material. Now we ask, okay, how much energy is needed to sublimate ice with such a large mass? And the answer is, well, if it's carbon dioxide, which is easiest to sublimate, I mean, water takes more energy, but carbon dioxide requires a surface area of an object that is 20 kilometers in diameter, much bigger than we estimated for the actual nucleus of 3i Atlas based on the Hubble image that was obtained back in July. So what does it mean? It means that in the natural case, the object might have broken into pieces so that the sum of the areas of all the pieces add up to the area that is required. So, and there should be tens of those pieces, maybe hundreds. And we don't have a good enough image yet to figure out if there are pieces. They would get separated by the tidal force of the sun as we move into the next few weeks. However, if it's a technological object, and we're talking about technological thrusters, those usually eject gas at a much higher speed. Rockets eject gas at 10 times faster speed than expected for volatiles on the surface of a comet, and the ion thrusters go up to 100 times the speed of those natural pockets of ice. And so we would expect much less mass to be carried in these jets at much higher speed in the case of a technological object. And the coming weeks will tell us the answer, because if this object is broken up, we will see the pieces. We would see slow-moving jets with a lot of mass in them. On the other hand, if it's a technological object, very fast jets with much less material in them, and the object maintains its integrity as it moves along.
Newly released images of the interstellar object 3i Atlas show not one, not two, but more than 7 razor-thin jets of material streaming from it, all aimed directly toward the sun. These aren't the wide, chaotic sprays we expect from ordinary comet outgassing. These jets are tight, focused, and they stretch nearly 1 million kilometers into space. That shouldn't be possible. If this were just ice and dust boiling away, the jets would be slow, messy, and dispersed. But if they're moving faster, far faster than nature should allow, then the explanation becomes far more unsettling. Because that's exactly what we see with thrusters, engineered propulsion. And here's the part that changes everything. We only need to wait. If this object is natural, it will fracture. The jets will carry huge amounts of material away and the core will come apart. But if it stays intact, if those jets are precise, efficient, and unnaturally fast, then we're not looking at a comet. We may be watching a craft. December 19th is the date that everyone should get circled. That's supposed to be when we get the clearest images of 3i Atlas from NASA's HiRISE camera. Now, for those of you who haven't been updated on this subject, I'll start from the beginning. Mind you, all these are recorded facts, not random conspiracy. We'll journey through the day it was seen, unexplained jets, the shape-shifting tail, the peculiar movements and mysterious structure of this cosmic enigma. By the end, you might just wonder if something technological is quietly cruising through our solar system right now. 3i Atlas burst into view in mid-2025, spotted by the Atlas Survey telescope scanning our skies. Immediately, it stood out. This was only the third confirmed interstellar object ever seen visiting us, following two earlier ones in 2017 and 2019. And at first, it seemed to have the telltale fuzzy coma of a comet. Astronomers eagerly calculated its path, a wild hyperbolic trajectory, confirmation that it came from far beyond our solar system. But as it tracked its course, they noticed something odd. 3I Atlas's path was uncannily well aligned with the plane of our solar system. In fact, it swung past Venus, then had a close flyby of Mars on its way toward the Sun, almost as if plotting a deliberate tour of our inner solar system. The odds of an interstellar vagabond randomly flying such a convenient route are astronomically low, on the order of just 0.005% by one calculation. Was this merely chance, or the first hint of something intentional? As it neared the Sun, 3I Atlas began behaving more and more like a comet, but a comet on steroids. It was much larger and more active than anyone expected. Initial Hubble Space Telescope images suggested a nucleus somewhere between 3 and 5 miles across, 5 to 10 kilometers, and weighing on the order of 33 billion tons, truly gigantic compared to the previous interstellar visitors, which were only a few hundred meters wide. Such a behemoth barreling in from another star raised eyebrows. One astronomer noted that by all odds, we shouldn't have been so fortunate, or perhaps so targeted, to have a mountain-sized interstellar object show up in our surveys. Statistically, we wouldn't expect an object this big to wander by more than once in tens of thousands of years. Yet here it was, as if something about our solar system had attracted it.
Then came the visual anomalies. Telescopes began snapping images of 3I Atlas as it raced toward the Sun, and these pictures revealed a truly bizarre sight. Instead of a single, neat tail, like a typical comet, 3I Atlas displayed a complex, multi-pronged structure. In one stacked deep exposure, astronomers saw not only a standard tail streaming out away from the Sun, but also two luminous anti-tails extending in the opposite direction, pointing toward the Sun. These anti-tails and jets stretched unbelievably far, on the order of millions of kilometers long. It's as if 3I Atlas had jets firing both forward and backward, a spectacle rarely seen at such scale in natural comets. To the eye of a skeptic, it almost looked like some kind of thruster system expelling material in multiple directions. At times, the comet seemed to transform its appearance dramatically. New photographs showed the tail growing in real time as 3I Atlas drew nearer to the Sun. Then, shockingly, around the moment of closest approach, the comet's usual tail virtually disappeared from view, leaving just an eerie greenish glow around the nucleus. A researcher using a large telescope captured an image of 3I Atlas glowing green and hiding its tail. The comet's tail had essentially vanished in the glare of the Sun. Comets can sometimes lose a visible tail if we're looking head-on at the outflow, but the timing and hue were strange. The green color suggested the presence of gases like cyanogen or diatomic carbon fluorescing in sunlight. But why would the tail itself fade from sight? It was almost as if the object had retracted or obscured its tail on purpose, adding to the mystery. In one phase, it flaunts enormous twin tails spanning the void. In the next, it's a naked green dot, hiding its tail as if to fly stealth under observation. Multiple observers reported jets bursting from 3I Atlas in odd directions, not only the typical sun-facing side. One set of images even showed a giant jet of gas and dust shooting out toward the Sun, essentially an outflow in the opposite direction of what you'd expect. This could be an optical effect of viewing angle, but it fed into the growing chatter that 3I Atlas was no ordinary comet. These jets and anti-tails were so pronounced that by late 2025, 3I Atlas boasted a colossal dual tail structure tens of millions of miles end to end. For a natural comet, sustaining such immense plumes would require an almost inconceivable amount of material being blown off into space. One calculation noted that to create just the anti-tail structures seen, the object would have to be shedding on the order of 50 billion tons of material per month in dust and gas. At that rate, a typical icy comet nucleus might completely exhaust itself, yet 3I Atlas was still intact and kicking. The sheer scale of its activity was a major anomaly.
Strange as the jets and tails were, the biggest shock came when 3I Atlas swung past the Sun.
In late October 2025, it reached perihelion, closest point to the Sun, and then started heading back out. Normally, a comet's moment in the Sun is its grand finale of activity. Afterward, it should begin to calm down and slowly fade as it recedes. But 3I Atlas did something almost unprecedented. Right after perihelion, it sped up. Instead of slowing under the Sun's gravity, this object gained a mysterious speed boost, as if something gave it an extra push away from the Sun. Astronomers were stunned. The Sun's gravity alone couldn't account for the trajectory change, and the usual cometary outgassing rocket effect, which does sometimes nudge comet orbits, was far too small to explain what was seen. This visitor was literally defying Newton's laws in plain sight. To put it in perspective, one scientist noted the 3I Atlas' sudden acceleration was far greater than what we saw in the famous Interstellar object a few years ago. That previous visitor only had a tiny anomalous push. In contrast, 3I Atlas's change in speed was described as baffling. It ended up zipping along at over 130,000 miles per hour, about 210,000 kilometers per hour, with no clear natural cause for the boost. As one report dramatically put it, the object clearly maneuvered, almost as if an internal engine fired to adjust its course. In fact, that exact phrasing came from a Harvard astrophysicist who went on record to say the object's motion looked deliberate. He calculated that the sudden speed increase was equivalent to the thrust you'd get if you somehow expelled 5 billion tons of material in one giant jet. 5 billion tons. That's like 100 fully loaded aircraft carriers' mass ejected in an instant. There was no visible outburst of that magnitude. Nothing obvious exploded or shot out at perihelion that we could see. So where on Earth, or beyond Earth, did this acceleration come from? Even more perplexing, at the very moment 3I Atlas gained this unexplained boost, it didn't have a normal comet tail. As mentioned, Hubble and other telescopes saw no big burst of gas or dust that could act like a rocket to propel it. The usual cometary fuel, vaporizing ice, didn't seem to be doing the job. Yet paradoxically, earlier in its approach, 3I Atlas had shown those massive jets and a huge tail. By the time it whipped around the Sun, it was as if the thrusters had fired, but the exhaust was invisible. Observers noted this puzzle explicitly. 3I Atlas accelerated despite no such tail being present to drive the motion. In other words, it was speeding up without a known propellant, almost as if it had engaged an advanced propulsion system we couldn't directly see. This behavior flat-out breaks the rules we know for comets and asteroids. Naturally, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and most experts still require much more proof before entertaining the alien idea. Yet the very fact that Congress has taken interest and NASA and ESA have devoted significant resources to observing 3I Atlas indicates this is being taken seriously. Space agencies have pointed dozens of telescopes at the visitor. Even spacecraft like NASA's James Webb Space Telescope and probes around Mars have tried to get data on it. So, could 3I Atlas truly be some kind of alien craft? The honest answer is, we don't know, and officially, most scientists still say probably not. The leading natural explanations propose that 3I Atlas is simply an ultra-rare type of comet, perhaps ejected from a distant star's Oort cloud and transformed by eons of radiation in interstellar space. Skeptics remind us that extraordinary things can happen without alien intervention. After all, nature is full of surprises.